Hey, it's me, John, in person. This week I'm talking about Cars 3, and you're probably wondering why I'm in person and not behind the camera. Well, the reason is, of course, because I just saw Cars 3, Pixar's third Cars movie, Who'da Thunk It. And to talk about it, I thought because it's so quick and because I know a lot of you are curious if this movie is worth checking out or not. And, the trailers have looked good so far. So, Cars 3, directed by Brian Fee, is, like I said, it's the third Cars movie, which is really strange to think about because Cars has never exactly taken the world by storm as a Pixar movie. It's routinely, the franchise itself, it's routinely considered the worst of the Pixar films, which is, it's not saying a ton because the Pixar films, by and large, no pun intended, have always had such a consistent quality about them. They're all high quality films in terms of animation. There are a few Pixar films that people will say are a bit more forgettable than the others, but even the worst Pixar films are definitely worthwhile. I've always thought that the first Cars, I saw the film myself when I was about in high school, and I remember seeing the first Cars and liking it okay. It wasn't a bad movie. I wouldn't even say it was an average movie. I just thought it was Pixar's first B movie. Even though I know some people will say that that is the case for A Bug's Life, I disagree. I think that Pixar had a legendary run in the early 2000s, going from Toy Story 2 to Monsters, Inc., of course, to Finding Nemo and Incredibles. I mean, we're talking about what I would say are the best Pixar films ever out of 17, now 18 films, all coming out within a couple of years of each other. So Cars coming out in 2006 after a year of having no Pixar movies at all. It was a big deal, and I think that it's important to point that out. So Cars comes out, it does okay in terms of box office. Domestically, it did really well. Internationally, it actually didn't do super well. And then the inverse is the case for Cars 2. Funny enough, Cars 2 didn't do well at all domestically, but internationally it did really well, so go figure. The interesting thing to me about the Cars movies is that everybody seems to be really interested in the Cars movies, much more so than I think anyone could have ever predicted. I always find myself thinking about the Cars movies. Like, one of my biggest complaints with the first one is that I can never get the concept out of my head and just get sucked into the story. I had a really hard time with the first Cars just buying into everything because it was so weird, and honestly there were just so many there were so many things going on that broke the rules of what you would expect from just a movie that's showing you like the secret life of Cars. This was telling us the secret world of Cars, and there was a lot of world building that they chose not to do for, I think, good reasons, and the story wasn't really strong enough to kind of overcome a lot of, the head-scratching moments, the how does that really work moments, and just the feeling that I just knew that I was watching a cartoon the entire time. Cars 2 did nothing to improve those flaws. If anything, it took the good things about Cars, did away with them, and just went all out silly, which to me, Pixar, when Pixar is silly, I think is when it is at its weakest. And the thing that I love about Cars 3 is that none of this seems to be the case. Cars 3 is the best Cars film by, I would say, a pretty large margin. And there are a lot of reasons, and I know it might seem kind of strange, just saw the movie, and I don't think I'm going to be the only person saying this. I think as people are going to be watching this movie, they're going to be seeing just a total stark difference in quality between the first two Cars films, even the first Cars film and this one. That's not to say that Cars 3 is this movie that's going to just blow your mind or anything. It really isn't, and there are things about the movie that, there are some predictable things going on. So what is Cars 3 about? What are the good and bad things? The trailers have definitely been very accurate in what kind of movie this is. It's a comeback tale for Lightning McQueen. Lightning McQueen it's only been 11 years since the first Cars. We don't know how long exactly it's been in the universe of the Cars movies. We can maybe just assume it's been about 10, 11 years because Lightning's getting up in years. People are calling him an old man. He's reflecting a lot on whether or not he should retire, especially as a new wave of rookies are coming in. And he, as you've seen in the trailers, something pretty intense happens to Lightning that threatens his future as a racer. And this movie, at least I won't give anything away, but a lot of the movie focuses on Lightning just really struggling and fighting to remain a racer that is respected. You know, he wants to choose when he retires. He wants to have that one last ride, to borrow from the Fast and Furious movies. So, going through this movie, we have some new characters. We have a lot of the older characters. The movie wisely takes characters that have maybe gotten a little bit too much attention, and by maybe I mean definitely characters like Tow Mater were given way too much time to do their whole comedic shtick. Mater is definitely sidelined for a vast majority of this movie. He's still used sparingly. I think actually pretty effectively as a character. The things that I do kind of like about Mater are definitely still there, and look, if you really hate Mater and you just can't deal with him, don't worry, he's not going to ruin the movie for you. If you're a big fan of the characters from Radiator Springs, you're in for a treat because they all get to shine big time here. Especially Luigi and Guido are back. They have some really funny lines. They have some the Rusty's cars get some like significant moments here, like not like big plot moments, but like it goes to this thing that really struck me about Cars 3. If we're looking at what this movie is about, it goes a lot deeper than this whole like comeback story about Lightning. It goes a lot more into... It's an American movie. It is so American. We go to a lot of different locations. There is an entire stretch of this movie where that like legitimately like made me a little homesick. Like I was thinking about my life in the East Coast and different places where I grew up, and I was looking at these locations beautifully rendered, beautifully brought to life with some amazing animation. I mean, we're talking like there were certain scenes that were at Good Dinosaur level. Say what you want about Good Dinosaur, but those were some amazing environments. It doesn't necessarily surpass Good Dinosaur. I don't think every frame is as jaw-dropping as Good Dinosaur was, but you do get a lot of moments that are on par with that. So that was a real treat, and I don't think it like looked weird at all with like how cartoonish the cars look, because the cars themselves have so much detail added to them. And this obviously, like, as you can imagine, relates so much to how American this movie feels because the locations are brought to life very lovingly. There's a lot of detail. Even in the soundtrack, there's so much detail to like the locations where you are. I mean, this is a rock and roll Cars movie in a lot of ways. And I didn't mention a couple of other characters. We do meet Cruz Ramirez. We meet Sterling. These are some characters that are brought into Lightning's life to sort of help him like figure out how he can compete with the new, cutting edge cars. And honestly, I think that a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie that has to do with the other characters, that has to do with like, okay, these characters go here because of this reason. All of that stuff, while none of it was super surprising or anything, for a lot of viewers, I think you'll see a lot of it coming. I think some people will be genuinely surprised by a lot of the things the movie does, but even though it's a little bit predictable, it doesn't, for some reason, feel formulaic at all. It's weird, because usually those two things go hand in hand. If I feel like I can call everything that's going to happen, I usually am like, okay, well, it's cliche or something like that. But even though, like, the story, the story just feels solid, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I didn't feel like it was meandering. I didn't feel like it was something that I've seen a million times. It was just something that, like, was a little predictable, as I said, but at the same time, like, I was into it all the way. Unlike the first two Cars movies, I was sucked in the entire time with Cars 3. I think that it's really good. It's a great movie. I genuinely think it's not just good, it's pretty great. There are a lot of things that bring it to life. I can't talk about certain things because spoilers and all of that, but there are a couple of moments here that hit pretty hard. There's one moment in particular that actually had me getting emotional. legitimate, like this was like Bing Bong emotional, so which took me off guard. And it's weird. I've never wanted to rewatch a Cars movie before, let alone like right after seeing it. So I'm kind of in a weird place right now where the more I think about this movie, the more I think about just everywhere I went, all of these places where I felt immersed in, where I felt like for the first time I bought into the idea of like a Cars, you know, world where they're the humans. All of that stuff, I was able to sort of forget, you know, all of the logic and forget all of that and just have a good time with this story. And it just is a testament to like, the story is so good that you don't think about the stuff that you shouldn't be thinking about. I think this is a movie that, while the cartoonish Cars thing, while it doesn't take anything away, I honestly could see a movie with human actors doing this in like a realistic setting, and the story is so strong here that I could see that movie being equally as good, right? It's just like an added bonus that you're also watching this like, amazing animation and some high concept stuff that they use to their advantage. I'm not totally like invested in the idea that it has to be like Cars brought to life necessarily. Like the movie does a good job making me forget about that stuff. But honestly, if I had to if I had to take something negative away from this movie, it's that it still doesn't argue its case for like why do we have to have a movie about cars. Not really. All the stuff that it deals with is very human. There's nothing about it. It's not like you can have like a Toy Story where it's about like it's not just toys having feelings, but it's like toys understanding their place in the universe. You can't really do that with Cars, and I guess that's okay because we don't want this movie to be just like Toy Story. We want it to be its own thing. So I think them going with the like, okay, just forget about all of the weird, like they don't have hands and just objects appear. Just don't worry about any of that stuff. Just watch and have a good time with a pretty good story, some amazing visuals, characters that honestly, you know, you will have an interesting time kind of revisiting. This is honestly a movie that forgets Cars 2 ever existed. It does not mention anything that has to do with Cars 2 for the better. And it honestly, it feels like what Cars 2 should have been. It feels like a direct sequel to the first Cars. And like some of the best sequels, like a sequel like Toy Story 2. I think that it honors the first movie and surpasses it. And takes what made the first movie work and doubles down on that and kind of does away with pretty much all of the flaws. So, not a perfect movie at all. I think this is a movie for fans of the Cars movies. It's made for you. If you liked the first Cars, if you love the Cars movies, Pixar didn't set out to make a movie that was going to convince the naysayers, obviously, with this one. They didn't make it to sort of appease the people who've always been down on the Cars movies. They made this for the people who love the Cars movies. The Cars movies have been very successful in pop culture. They haven't been Pixar's most financially successful box office movies, but the merchandising for Cars is second only to Star Wars. I mean, these are characters and likenesses that are just super recognizable. So that's why they made this movie. And, you know, it's a cynical way to look at it, but it's an honest way to look at it. And I'm just really happy that they took it seriously, that they made something worth watching in the theater. They didn't make something that is revolutionary. They didn't make a movie that is on par with the best Pixar films, but they made a movie that's kind of there in the middle. It's in the middle with those Pixar movies that will probably, you know, stand the test of time and be the ones that you go to definitely more than just a handful of times, but for kids especially, I think growing up, they're going to love this movie. They're going to revisit this movie a lot, and for good reason. It's not a dumb movie. It's not stupid, and it has a lot of heart, and its heart is in a lot of the right places. And I'm really proud of myself because I'm finishing this up and I didn't do any like significant car puns because those are the worst. And let's just call it, I guess. So thanks for watching this review, and I don't usually do things like this. This is like not a setup that I had prepared or anything. This is like my setup for the show I used to do on Facebook Live called The Pixar Detectives. I even used like the slideshow from that on the TV. Sorry that like all of this is unprofessional. There's like a glare and like all of this stuff. Don't have any microphones or anything like that, but you know, it's an off the cuff talk about Cars 3. So please respond in turn and tell me, obviously, let's have a conversation. What did you think of Cars the franchise. Are you going to see Cars 3? And, I don't want you to go into Cars 3 with like too high expectations here. I want to temper them. But my final grade is a B+. B+ means that fans of the Cars movie, of the genre, most of them are going to like this one. And I think a significant amount of people are really going to like this, maybe even love it. So definitely check it out. If you are a Cars fan, if you are a Pixar fan, this is probably a movie that you're really going to love, depending on like your mileage for Cars. And I used a pun. I'm sorry. Anyway, that'll do it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me for this quick video. And if you want to see like other things that I do, like if you want to listen to my podcast, I do Cinemaholics on WeGotThisCovered.com. That's a different YouTube channel that you can check out, and it's audio only, and it's on Apple Podcasts / iTunes and all that stuff. And if you want to catch me on Screen Junkies Movie Fights, I'm going to be on Movie Fights Thursday. That's this Thursday, depending on when you're watching this. June 15th at 4 p.m. live, I think, is when we start recording. And of course, it'll be available on the Screen Junkies YouTube channel as well. We're going to be talking, it's going to be like a special Pixar-themed movie fights, which is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we're going to be talking about Cars movies, but all across the Pixar spectrum. That's going to be fun. I'm super nervous because I've never done movie fights before, but I'm really hoping that I can argue and I can do a better job public speaking like this than I am doing right now. So let's hope for the best. All right, guys, that'll do it for me this week. I'll see you again eventually. Until next time.